Hello, everybody, and welcome to our session today. I'm just waiting. I can see the numbers jumping on up in the participants at the moment, but I want to say a very big welcome to you all on this sort of fairly lovely autumn day on Thursday. You've joined us today for our mathematics session called Calculating Your Future. So the idea of today is basically to give you a good idea of what mathematics is like to study at Swansea, give you a sort of student perspective, an academic perspective, and also a graduate perspective of the course and the opportunities that it will provide to you. So first things to say is my name is Charlie or Charlotte, and I work within the student recruitment team here in the Faculty of Science and Engineering. I'm joined today by Abby Carpenter, Dr. Randall Wright, and Amy Sutherland, who will all be kind of talking to you about various aspects of mathematics, where it can take you and what opportunities it can bring, and basically give you a bit of an idea of where you're going to end up if you take a degree in mathematics. So first things to say is we'd love for you guys to get involved today. So if you've got any questions, please feel free to put them into the Q&A box. We'll be kind of typing away answers throughout the session, and then anything that you would like to put to the panel, or we think the panel could give a really good insight on, we'll be kind of like putting those over at the end of the session. But also you can see on there's a very sort of big list of questions, of courses that we offer. So if you've got any questions about those particular courses, please, as I say, pop them into the Q&A. If you're joining us from Facebook, you can leave a comment on the Facebook live stream. And if you're watching this as a recording, then you can send me an email. So my email address is just there for you. So before we get going, I know that obviously if you're sitting in this room now and watching the session, you are thinking about studying maths at university or a course based in maths. We know, first of all, how difficult this year has been. It has been absolutely insane with COVID and how it's impacted on your education, on your ability to go to school, on your ability to sit exams and have kind of equal assessments. And we fully acknowledge that at Swansea, and we're going to basically do our absolute best to make the transition from your sixth forms and from college over to university as easy as we physically can. So please know that we will adapt our offers. So if you get an offer from us and you're worried about it because of all of the different extenuating circumstances going on at the moment, you will have an opportunity basically to contact us at any point. So you don't have to wait till results day. You can email us at any time, give us a call, and we will happily have a chat to you about your offer and see if maybe we could reduce it, basically do something to make you feel a little bit better. So for our courses there, so the BSc programs are normally around 3 Bs we'd look for as a general offer. As I say, if you're worried about it, let us know. For the M maths sort of levels, we'll look for something a little bit higher as grade requirements. But as I say, we will be flexible. So please don't feel like universities are terrifying and you can't talk to them. We will definitely be here to help you out if we can. And again, if you've had offers from other universities that you're applying to, then just get in contact with us, especially if they are, for example, if you love Swansea, if you really think you might want to find a home here, but another university may have given you a really low offer or an unconditional offer, then get in contact with us because we may be able to do something about that. It's basically a case, we know when you're choosing a university, you should be picking a university where you think you'll do well, where you really want to study, and where you will actually feel at home and be in an environment that will suit you best. So just make sure that you're choosing a university based on that. And if that is us, then we'd love to have you and we'll do everything we can to get you to Swansea. If it isn't us, then please don't feel bad about that. We don't mind. We'd much rather you're studying in an institution that you like and that you'll do well at, rather than one that you just feel like you have to go to because you don't know how your exam results are going to go. So basically, based on that, and going on for a university that is the right choice for you, I'm now going to pass over to Abby. She is our student ambassador and one of our current students studying maths. And she's going to tell you a little bit about the course and herself and her journey through her maths degree. So Abby, over to you.
Thank you. So I'm Abby. I'm currently a third-year student studying maths. I did the course studying maths for a year in industry, so I'll come back to that in a little bit as well. So I first wanted to talk to you a little bit about the modules, especially the ones in first year. So I think what they do in first year is start to build a really good foundation for the rest of the 3 years of your bachelor's, if you do a bachelor's, especially algebra and analysis. So you have 2 of those in each semester, and that just makes sure that you have a really good basis to do all the other ones. I actually prefer applied maths. So my favourite course in first year was mechanics. And this follows on from sixth form or college or wherever you were. So you can do these without having studied the other ones in sixth form, and they just build on the basics and then build you up so you can carry on studying them in the next few years as well if you wanted to. They also do stats as well. So that's like looking at confidence intervals and hypothesis testing and all that good stuff. And you actually use SPSS, which is a statistical computing program. So that's really good practice for your future career as well. Another good one that we did was geometry. So this focuses on the communication in maths and how you can write maths and look at all the like axioms and definitions and things like that and how that all works. And you actually get to do a report, write it up in LaTeX and then do a presentation. So that's really good practice for your third year dissertation as well. I've had a look at what they offer this year, and they've actually got some really interesting ones as well. So in first year, you have an introduction to BioMaths, which I never got, and an introduction to modelling and simulation. So that looks at modelling into real life situations, and you use online computer programs for that as well. So that looks really interesting. And obviously, studying a math course, your modules are really important. And I think those build a really good basis into the future ones that you can study as well. I really enjoy my course, and I would say to all of you to study it, just because there are so many transferable skills that you can get from maths. And I think it opens up so many opportunities for the future. And there's such a broad range of careers that you can take that you might not have known about otherwise. I'm sure Amy will talk about that later. But employers look for fundamental skills rather than hard skills. So in maths, you build such a wide range. You have like problem solving, analytical thinking, your investigative skills in your dissertation. So I think that really stands out to employers as well, rather than having studied a specific path. It's also really satisfying to overcome hurdles. So obviously math can be quite challenging sometimes, but I think that feeling when you get stuck and you get past that, you can't compare. And then if you do get stuck, we do have an excellent department of lecturers, and they're really helpful, especially this year as well. They're really supportive, and they're really happy just to have a video call with you and explain things, and they won't just leave you to get lost and get stuck on your own. So after this, I'm planning on doing a graduate scheme. So like I said earlier, I did a year in industry doing maths, and I did a data analyst internship. And I didn't think that was something that I could go into doing maths, but it was. So that was really interesting to be able to do that. So obviously that's helped me have a look at what I've got in the future that I can do as well. So obviously we're in a pandemic, so studying this year is slightly more different. I was actually working when the switch to going online was happening. So when I came back to uni, I was already quite used to working from home already. This uni offers blended learning, so especially for first years, you have some courses at home and some courses on campus. So that offers, at least you still get to go into uni and see some people as well. The format's quite similar to past years, so obviously you have, I think it's 4 lectures per module each week. But because they're all online, they're also recorded, which means that we can go back and watch them if you get stuck, which is really, really helpful, which we haven't had in the years before. Also, if you didn't enjoy just being stuck in your room constantly, then there are places in the uni that you can study. So you can book these places, so you have somewhere else to go. Obviously, it's slightly more challenging to study in lockdown, but I really think it's handy to have that routine that other people might not have, because you've still got your goals to meet and your exams to take, and you've still got all that going on, just to keep you in a straight mindset. Computer labs, so that there are practical modules. They're still, I believe, still in person, so you get to go into uni on campus and have computer labs, and you still get to play around with all the software and things, which is really good. obviously, again, it's a lot more, everything's different. Lectures are different now they're not in the lecture hall, but there are still positives about it. So if you might feel intimidated in a lecture hall to ask questions, whereas here it's quite simple, like you're doing now. You can just type on the chat, which is a lot less scary than if you're in a lecture hall. And I personally find it slightly easier to focus just because I'm not surrounded by people. Obviously, that's a personal preference, but that's something that might be good. And if you feel like it, if you're feeling lazy, you can take a lecture from bed. You can just roll out and sit on your desk. So it's a lot more, it's a lot easier to make sure that you actually go. And if you did miss something or you wanted to go over something again, like I said, they're all recorded, so they're all online for you anyway. So I think a big part of Swansea is student life and meeting people. So when I first arrived, the way I met people was through my accommodation. So I lived on campus and I met lots of people that way. We had freshers Facebook groups, and I just messaged people and asked if they were going to the induction and if they wanted to go together. I think you just have to take that step. Meeting people in lectures and going to society events and uni events and things like that. Obviously, we can't do all of that at the moment, but it's still possible to be social, and the uni's making sure that there's lots of things that we can do. So societies are doing lots of online events, so with the union you can do lots of things. Sports practices are socially distant, so you can still join societies and things. A part-time job is also a really good way to meet people, or to do the ambassador scheme, which is what I'm doing now. And so at the moment, obviously that's currently online. So if you're more comfortable with that, then that's something you can do. And if you wanted to meet people in your lectures, then you can make group chats and things like that to ask questions, because you're all in the same boat, and that's a really good way to do it. So yeah, as I mentioned, I'm in my third year at uni. I'm really grateful for what I've learnt so far and how supportive I felt through everything. I think Swansea is a really good place to look to study. Obviously, you're surrounded by the beach. Both campuses are right on the beach. Everywhere in the town is so close, and yeah, I think that's what I've got to say. I really hope you spend time looking into Swansea and seeing if it's something for you.
Brilliant, thank you, Abby.
Thank you.
Just while we've got you here, I was just wondering, what subjects did you do before you came to university? What were your sort of?
I think I did physics, maths, and Spanish actually. So I just picked whatever I fancied. And math always stood out as just something I enjoyed in school, and I think I enjoyed the challenging process and just that feeling of like getting something right. It's just, I crave that, so math is really good for that.
That's absolutely fair. I was just wondering, because obviously maths at A level is a big step from GCSE. So
Yeah.
did you find it like a big step again when you went to university? How was it?
Yeah, it's definitely different. It's more independent, but I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think in school you're taught this is the process, learn the process, and that's it. Whereas in uni, this is the facts behind it, and you can figure out your own way to get into it. And there's a lot of more abstract thinking, which is really interesting. But yeah.
Fantastic, brilliant. And you're in your third year, is that right? Yeah.
Third year, yeah.
Yeah. So are you doing your project at the moment?
Yes, yeah, I am.
I was going to say, because Dr. Randall was going to be talking about sort of third year projects. So I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about yours, if that's okay.
It's very different to anything I've done before. Like I said earlier, in first year we did the geometry module, which gave us a chance to get used to the software that we have to use now, and learn kind of how to write it. But obviously it's a lot different doing the researching, but it's a really good learning curve. I think you kind of flick a switch and you're like, oh, actually this is how you do it. And I think I finally got there. So yeah, no, it's really interesting.
Excellent. No, it always amazes me the stuff that people end up producing for their third year project. So that's good. I look forward to seeing the final thing.
Yeah,
so,
thank you.
on that note, I'm going to invite Randy on in to basically tell everybody a little bit about the final year projects that the students produce. So thank you very much, Abby. Really appreciate that. And then, no worries. Randy, if you're ready, I'll pause over to you.
Hi, I get to do some nice mathematics with you in a moment. Let me pull that up. And, I've got to do the screen sharing. Excuse me. Okay, so there's so many things on the screen at one time. Okay, you've got the slideshow right now, right?
Yep, all there and present.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, to pick up on some of what Abby was talking about, I think that what's happened with the pandemic is that we've been forced into new ways of doing things, and a lot of it has really been wonderful. You know, when we have open days at the university and people come to tour our facilities, we have fabulous new facilities at the Swansea Bay campus, really state of the art and designed with all the latest technology for teaching and learning. And when we went into teaching online, we had all of that at our disposal to quickly flip to doing online lectures and recordings and so forth. And now we kind of like it. Just today, I had a webinar with our students with a colleague from London. We called it Chat with an Actuary. Abby was one of those who joined in to ask questions and hear from someone who's gone far into the field. I'm an actuary myself. After that, I was talking to colleagues from the Institute and Faculty of Actuaries on a COVID-19 volunteer group that we're on. And now here we are doing this webinar. Next year, we're going to continue that kind of connectivity that you can do electronically, but we're also going to get back to all the human element and the in-person things that you can do in the fabulous facility that we have and the reading room that students gather in, which we all love. Okay, let me get back to, okay, so I said I'm going to do some mathematics here. What I want to show you is some of what happens in the dissertations that students do. Most of our programs have a dissertation in the final year. It counts for 2 modules, as much as 2 classes. That's a scary thought at this point, but rest assured that we will get you there. And, you know, legions of students before you have gone from where you are right now to the kinds of things that you're going to see here. Let me, okay, I need to get to where I can show you a little something. So Abby said that her interest was mechanics. And so here's a dissertation that one of our students wrote last year on the catenary curve. Catenary curve is the shape that a chain would make if you hang it and let it droop. The St. Louis Arch in St. Louis, Missouri, USA is a catenary curve. It will help if I rotate this for you so you can see the chain hanging down there. It was built that way to distribute the forces properly. Okay, now to get it back to where it was. So this student, Aylin Jones, who did her dissertation in mechanics, the field that Abby liked so well, she researched hanging curves. She researched the equations that are involved and how to derive those. So this is her actual dissertation. This is the diagram that she drew. She didn't copy this from a book somewhere. She learned to draw a diagram like that with and label it with all the pieces showing. And you see all the formulas are there. She learned the mathematical typesetting software as well for this. Another popular topic year after year on dissertations has been epidemiology models. Here's a dissertation from Katrin Jones last year who looked at epidemics. She chose that topic before COVID-19 came along. And in the middle of writing a topic where she was doing all the formulas, the differential equations, and the calculus involved in studying epidemics, we started hearing about COVID-19. So she started bringing some of that in. She's looking here at the states of susceptible people, vaccinated people, infected people, and recovered people. So back to the slide deck, and so this year, here's the description of what our students do in a dissertation. You're carrying out a project. There are a lot of goals. There is, first of all, a large paper. It's 7,000 to 8,000 words or 30 pages. You will be able to type 30 pages of mathematics with all the symbols and all the formulas taken from things that you've done in modules by the time that you get to the third year, because we'll take you through the steps to get you there. But the project also goes through presentation skills and researching skills and all the steps that build up to that. Here are some of the topics that people have been doing this year. So, and these are this year's topics that students are working on right now. What in pure mathematics, things like what is symmetric about the symmetric group? I love this title, unsupervised clustering. That sounds like something very dangerous to do during a pandemic, but actually I had to look at this. The unsupervised clustering has to do with some of the algorithms in machine learning. Quantum calculus, you're studying calculus now at school. So quantum calculus must be some mysterious extended kind of calculus that you will get to by the time you reach that point at university. Quasi-groups and Latin squares, that's an intriguing title. And you know, if you've seen what a differential equation is, then maybe you barely have, but you will get to partial differential equations in university and see some of the things that happen with that. In applied mathematics, you might get to something like COVID-19. I have two students actually now working on COVID-19. As I said, I've been volunteering with the Institute and Faculty of Actuaries on COVID-19 analysis. I've been working with colleagues in other countries. Actually, just today, we published a set of data sources from around the world with the best place to go for data in every country that we could find. A colleague in Brazil told me that Brazil publishes a line-by-line database of everyone who's been suspected of having COVID-19. So there are over 2 million rows of data there. One of my students is taking those 2 million lines of data. I have to show you this. So he's got 2 million lines of data. It's in Portuguese, of course. So he's translating it from Portuguese. That's the first thing. And then that is more than you can use. That is more than you can do in Excel. So he has to take this to SPSS, which Abby mentioned, or R for statistical analysis, some package that will allow him to sort this out. He has a database of 2 million lines. So he's got an ID for each person, date of notification, date of initial symptoms, date of birth. He's got symptoms like fever. I don't know what outros is, but it sounds bad. He's breaking out all these symptoms, and he's doing all the statistics on this database that he learned about in his modules. But now he's showing that he can work with 2 million rows of data and that he can make sensible conclusions out of that. Okay, let me come back to here. Other students are doing things like public key cryptography, where you have codes, but they are based on publicly available information. You still have coding, you have secrecy, but with publicly available information. Heat and mass transfer involves a lot of calculus. Soap bubbles are a wonderful mathematical topic because the shapes that soap bubbles form are very mathematical. Then I have one student this term working on voting systems. Depending on how you set up an election, if you have more than 2 candidates, you can have a variety of outcomes based on how you handle that mathematically. He said to me, I'd like to see if I could apply that to sports somehow. And I told him I would be so happy to hear about something other than politics, that would be a tremendous idea. You know, each of these students is taking their topic in a direction that interests them, and that they will be able to talk about when they get into a job interview and someone asks them, you know, tell me about the biggest thing you did at university. Biomathematics is very popular. Here are some of the kinds of topics you might do in biomathematics. Biological waves, for instance, populations that ebb and flow with predators and prey. They move in waves. The human body is a great big physics machine. So all of the biomechanics of that's an awesome project. HIV is at this point a fairly mature epidemic that has been through a lot of modeling. That modeling is something that informs us now on future epidemics. I know some of the supervisors for these. The tumor project is one of our young biomathematics researchers who really knows a tremendous amount about brain cancer and the mathematics that goes into that. You know, we have a careers fair next week where several pharmaceutical testing companies will be in to interview students. And the connection between biomathematics and those employers' interests is very strong. Finance, this is more my area of specialty now. So I have a student working on cryptocurrency. He's looking at Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. They're a lot like other assets, but they're far more volatile than stocks and bonds. So there's a tremendous amount of special mathematics that goes into that. As an actuary, I've done a lot of work in insurance. Some of our students are doing insurance kinds of projects and pricing projects with financial assets, stocks, bonds, and options. Finally, I'll leave you with our Twitter presence. We've been expanding, getting out there on Facebook and on Twitter. If you're on Twitter, you'll see Swansea Mathematics with @SwanseaUniMaths. We could throw that into the chat. I'll hand it back to you, Charlie, and go from there.
Lovely, thank you very much. That was excellent. Wonderful to hear about what every student's doing, and I feel like this gets more and more complicated the more I learn about maths. So I think that's a very good thing. So on
but it's wonderful because, you know, the students who are on this call and the students we have at Swansea now want to get into those equations and understand a thing like soap bubbles or voting or brain tumors, and we'll get you there.
Exactly, yeah, and that's the beautiful thing. So on that note of where we can get people to, I'd like to now invite Amy into the conversation. So Amy graduated from Swansea University around about 2014, I believe, and she's been very busy ever since, getting lots of impressive qualifications and pursuing a wonderful career. So Amy, if you are ready and if you're able, if you can join us, and we'll kick off with your section.
Yes, no problem. I will try and share my screen now. So I do have a few slides. So if someone could just give me a shout if they're able to see that.
Yep, they're there. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. All right, so hello everyone. My name is Amy Sutherland. I work at Hymans Robertson, and I'm currently training to be an actuary. And I, as Charlie said, I did a Master's of Mathematics at Swansea University between 2010 and 2014. So I'm hoping today just to give you a bit of a flavour of what an actuary does, and then also something that you might be able to look into as a career after you finish a mathematics degree. So firstly, I'm just going to talk a little bit about what an actuary does do. So as Dr. Wright said, actuaries do work in insurance, and we also work in pensions, investment, banking and corporate finance. So there's lots of things you can get involved in, and particularly once you qualify as an actuary, there's an absolute ton of avenues that you can take. So an actuary tends to look at risk events and understand the probability of various things happening. For instance, COVID or different financial market events such as a recession. So we look at the probability of those things happening, and then we also look at the financial impact of that on, say, companies or clients. So for instance, I work with a lot of pension schemes to understand the financial impact of things. So some of the skills that you need to have to become an actuary, obviously it's very mathematical, so good maths and analytical skills, but it's also really crucial that you've got good communication and management skills as well. So a lot of the work that I do is taking all these really, really heavy mathematical topics and statistical modelling, etc., to people that don't even necessarily have a GCSE or A-level in mathematics. So they really don't know any of the maths behind it, and I still have to get across to them sort of what the impact is, what the cost is, what they need to do to make sure that they're in a good situation. So that then also involves a lot of problem solving as well. So hence the points about being creative and adaptable as well. In terms of qualifications, I think actuaries tend to have, I think, to start taking the exams, a B at A-level mathematics, and then preferably you need a first or second class degree in a numerate subject such as maths, actuarial sciences, other sciences, or business or economics, that sort of thing. Once you graduate, or depending on if you're taking the actuarial science degree, you will start working towards becoming an associate or a fellow of the Institute and Faculty of Actuaries. And the only difference really between those two, apart from a few exams, is that fellows tend to specialise in a particular industry. So for instance, I specialise in pensions and a bit of the investment as well. In terms of starting salary, graduate roles for an actuary, an actuarial consultant that is, tend to start around £25,000 to £35,000 a year, which is quite nice. And that just depends on where you're located. So London's obviously a little bit higher because it's expensive. And then also the role that you have. So if you have a few exemptions from an actuarial sciences degree, you might get a little bit more, as a lot of the pay increases that you get in the first few years of being an actuarial trainee consultant do revolve around the exams that you pass. Once you qualify, this tends to be up to about £40,000 to £55,000 a year, and that does depend a little bit on how long it takes you to qualify. So if you've got a lot of experience when you qualify because you've taken a little bit longer of exams, you might be at the higher end. And then it also depends on, again, location. So if you're in London versus elsewhere. Senior actuaries and then above and beyond, 60k plus, we get some pretty good benefits. So stuff like car allowances, good pensions. Obviously, being in pensions, you'd expect that, hopefully. And then, yeah, once you get to a partner or senior director level, you can earn well over six figures. And then one of the other things that we always like to mention is that actuaries or the actuarial profession is generally considered really quite one of the best professions almost in terms of the pay that you get for the hours that you work and the stress levels that come with the job. Pretty good in terms of hiring, and I've personally found that I think at least once you get your foot in the door as well and get a graduate role, you're pretty in a pretty secure profession as well, which is really nice. So moving on. So my journey at and after university, I did a pure mathematics degree at Swansea University. I did a few modules in probability and statistics, and then I did a dissertation in probability, so 0-1 laws. But I won't go into too much detail on that now. I got a 2-1 in my degree, and following that, I then got a graduate role as an actuarial analyst initially at a company in Cardiff called Quantum Advisory in the pensions industry. So an actuarial analyst is slightly different to an actuarial consultant, and tends to focus on the technical or more mathematical side of the actuarial profession. So using a lot of spreadsheets for data analysis, statistical modelling, and then producing reports on that as well. So I will say that IT skills are pretty important. Not to worry if you don't necessarily have them, but it is incredible what Excel can do. So anything you do know about it is always good. I then, after a couple of years as an analyst, I moved into consulting. So what this involved was continuing that data analysis and statistical modelling work as well. And then those reports that do get produced on that, I then started taking those to clients and explaining to them the impact on them, what they need to think about, the cost to them, the next steps, any risks that need to be managed. As well. So just a lot of considerations and really getting through to the client and trying to help them solve any problems they might have. And I'll give some of the examples of that in a little bit as well. I also do a lot of work on developing products and propositions, again, which I'll talk about in a minute. But for instance, I help develop the governance proposition, and also I do a lot of work on climate change at the moment in my current job, which is a massively developing field and one that actuaries are looking to expand into as well and already doing work in. So that's really interesting too. So I think if I move on now. Currently, as I said, I've moved from Quantum Advisory to Hymans Robertson, so still in pensions. So I help companies around the UK think about the pension schemes that they either already have got set up for their employees or that they want to set up for employees as well. So what this means is if you think about when somebody retires, you've got to think about how long they're potentially going to live after retirement. And then if a company is paying out a pension to that person for those years after retirement, you've got to think about how long that person's going to live. And then as a result of that, how much over that person's lifetime that's going to cost the company to pay. And then that kind of nicely leads on to that second bullet there, which is around the fact that people are living longer than ever before, despite COVID. And so it is costing companies quite a bit more to pay these pensions because people are living longer than it was originally expected about 20-30 years ago as well. So there is a risk element around that because companies don't necessarily have the money to pay for all those additional years worth of pension. So a little bit about transferring that risk as well. And then we also take into account stuff like UK legislation for pension schemes, which is ever changing and always causes some great problems that need to be solved as well. A little bit on the sort of the softer, almost consulting side. I do governance consulting, so that's a bit more on the risk management. I also do quite a lot on trustee boards and how they can be more effective, decision making skills, that sort of thing as well, which is really interesting. If people like me, for instance, quite enjoy the variety of certain of well, I don't suppose it's not maths, but if you want something a bit more varied, then actuaries can get involved in that as well. And then also something that is touched upon in one of the actuarial exams, but I also find really fascinating, which is biases in financial decision making as well. So an example of this is if someone's invested a bunch of money into a stock, that stock's plummeted, they've lost a bunch of money, but they don't want to take it out of that stock because then that means that they have fully lost that money and they think it might go back up again. And that's sort of a financial bias called sunken cost fallacy. So thinking about that and how you can counteract those biases when you're thinking about financial decisions as well. And then finally, more recently, I've been getting involved with a lot of work around climate change, climate risk and responsible investment. So pension schemes might be impacted by climate change because natural events occurring, natural weather events impacting people's sort of longevity expectations, so how long they might live. So that impacts sort of the cost of a pension scheme to a company. And then also investment. So I think UK pension schemes account for trillions of pounds worth of investment. So it's really quite important that if all pension schemes in the UK were to invest in good companies, so sort of not fossil fuels, for instance, then they could really make a difference in terms of us moving to what we term a green economy as well. So I do quite a bit of work on that recently as well. And then finally, just some examples of taking the mathematics, some of the maths that you might do as part of your degree, and some of it which you might learn as part of the actuarial studies that you do to become an actuary, and how that fits into my day job, for instance. So there's a lot around probability and statistics. So thinking about the likelihood of different economic scenarios, such as a recession or COVID. There has been an absolute ton of market volatility earlier this year when COVID occurred, with lots of companies and businesses struggling and stocks going up and down all over the place. And that impacts quite a lot of pension schemes. So that's why I've been thinking about this year. Also probability in terms of longevity and mortality, which sounds a little bit morbid, thinking about the probability of someone dying this year or next or the next. But we do a lot of work around that because again, it amounts to a cost for the company. So it's putting a number on that, even if it does seem a little bit morbid. And then also, as Dr. Wright talked about a little bit in the insurance industry, risk events as well, and the probability of something occurring. So many of you might have had holidays booked this year, and you might have had insurance on those holidays. COVID came along, everything got cancelled, and so thinking about how that insurance policy for you is priced, and taking into account the risk of an event occurring like this and how much it might cost the insurance company. And then also some financial mathematics as well. So again, if there's a pension to pay in 20 years time, what do I need to, or what does a company need to invest right now, which should hopefully be quite a low amount, so that they have that money in 20 years time to pay out to the pensioners. Or similarly, if I want to £30,000 per annum pension to live off in retirement, what do I need to contribute now into my pension pot? So that's just a few examples there. I think I've run over slightly, but hopefully that's been really helpful. And if anybody wants to get in touch with me, ask any questions on LinkedIn or via email or now even, I'm more than happy to help as well. So yeah.
Fantastic.
Back
Thank you,
to
Amy. That was brilliant. I've never really fully understood what you do, but now I do, so that's helpful. Just on the topic there, on the question side of things, if I can get you to cast your mind back, and I'll bring Abby in on this as well. We've had someone ask about basically whether they should, what they should be considering if they're going to study maths. So I'm wondering for you and Abby, what was your trigger point to decide to basically contribute 3 to 4 years of your life dedicated to studying maths at university?
Abby, do you want to go first, or I'm happy to?
Yeah, no, I don't mind. I think mine was quite easy. I just enjoyed it at school. I enjoyed the challenges, and I think I also had really good teachers, which helped to help me enjoy it a little bit more. And I knew as well that I think there's a lot of good opportunities in the future from studying maths. But yeah, I think that's about it.
For me, I will be honest, maths was, it's a bit in my blood. Both my parents are accountants. I was always doomed, as they say. But I was generally quite good at maths. I know I found out about the career of an actuary when I was about 16, I think, and I do remember that the salaries was potentially what swayed me, I won't lie, but it was taking something that I was good at, and kind of expanding on that, and the variety that I get now in my role is absolutely amazing, and the fact that maths is kind of the foundation of it, and that maths is something I enjoy as well, has been really, really great as well. So.
Brilliant, thank you very much. I was going to say, I really wish we had a bit more time to answer some questions, but because I know that everyone has various things they need to run off to tonight, I won't keep everyone here. But just want to say a big thank you to everyone for joining us today. I hope that you found the session useful and you've got a little bit of more of an idea of, you know, the kinds of careers you can go into and the maths course in general. So just as a last thing, I'd like to say thank you to Dr. Wright, to Abby and to Amy for giving up your time this evening to help kind of sway the choices of the next load of mathematicians of the world. And if anyone has any other questions that haven't been answered tonight, my email address is up there, so please feel free to get in contact with me. And on that note, goodbye everyone and have a lovely evening.